But let's bring in Gidi Grinstein. He's a former peace negotiator under the former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. He's also the author of Insight, Peacemaking in the Oslo Process, 30 years and counting. Welcome to the programme, Gidi, on what could be a very significant development in this conflict. Tell me, as someone who's worked in negotiations for many years, where do you see any potential pitfalls, any potential obstacles to this deal?
First of all, in negotiation, there is this concept called ZOPA, Zone of Possible Agreement. And the parties gravitate into the Zone of Possible Agreement, which means they relinquish unrealistic expectations when they are exhausted. And this is what we're seeing right now. Hamas is really exhausted and decimated in Gaza. Israel is clear that it is not achieving the total victory and the goals, even the unspoken goals that the government probably had, which is to push out hundreds of thousands, if not more, Palestinians out of Gaza. That's not happening. Egypt held steady on the border. No other country would take them. So a lot of the initial aspirations, unrealistic aspirations, are being kind of contained, and therefore the parties are converging into the zone of possible agreement. The real challenge now is moving from a 21-point plan, which is basically an outline, to an agreement. And here there could be a number of pitfalls. Number one, who signs on the Palestinian side? Until now, the government of Israel said no Hamas, no Abbas, which means no entity on the Palestinian side can actually sign on the agreement. And the signing on the agreement here is really crucial, because otherwise there is this plan where there's no official Palestinian party to this plan. Maybe there are representatives like Qatar or Egypt, but it's not the Palestinian side. So very soon, as we move from the outline to the plan, there's going to have to be a decision. A, is it going to be an agreement? And B, who's signing on the Palestinian side? The second thing is political. This government of Israel was founded on the rejection of the idea that there are two indigenous people in the land, Israelis and Palestinians. And therefore, there was a rejection of the Oslo process and all other agreements relating to the self-determination of Palestinians, and also a desire to demolish the Palestinian Authority. The events of the last few days are nothing short of extremely dramatic. When Trump effectively said there is not going to be annexation in the West Bank, this means that the West Bank is going to stay as a disputed territory, as it has been since 1967.
And I just want to pick up on one other issue, which I've seen some analysts talking about the longer-term plan for the region, and also about the West Bank and about Gaza, and about the people who live there. Will those Palestinians still be considered refugees? And will they still be looked after by UNRWA, the UN agency, which has proven to be so infiltrated by Hamas in the past 2 years?
First of all, I want to say about the ZOPA. We have described the ZOPA on your program multiple times in the past. And the idea is that when this international reconstruction body coming into Gaza, this is the historic opportunity, we spoke about it on your show, to actually push out UNRWA and to end key elements of the Palestinian refugee situation in Gaza. What I mean by that is, think about the Jabalia refugee camp. It's now going to be rebuilt. Is it being rebuilt as a refugee camp, or is it being rebuilt as a component of Gaza, of Palestinian Gaza? The people who will get a new home in the area that used to be Jabalia refugee camp, are they getting this new home as refugees, or are they getting this new home as owners of property that are no longer considered refugees? There is a historic opportunity here to diminish key aspects of the refugee problem, but that depends on another layer that has to come forward, and that is the fact that the Gaza and the West Bank are effectively being re-recognized as a single political unit of the Palestinian side, and therefore, consequently, down the road, the Palestinian side will have the ability will need to actually represent. The PLO and the PA will need to represent the Palestinians as we move toward the later part of the transition period in Gaza. So actually, we're looking at...
Yeah, you're talking about sorry, I just want to jump in, because you're talking about what would be pretty painful concessions for both sides. It has to be said. And that would also require, down the road, the Palestinians giving up the right of return, which, as you know, has scuppered the peace process so many times.
Well, the right of return of the Palestinians can be realized to the Palestinian state. This is the end game of any political negotiations about permanent status. There could be a right of return for refugees to the Palestinian state and not to Israel. This has been the position of Prime Minister Barak, Prime Minister Olmert, President Clinton, President Trump in his peace plan of January 2020.
So you're potentially talking about 5 million Palestinians moving back to that area between the river and the sea.
Well, we assume that they're going to want to move back. Remember that 40% of them already live in that area, meaning 40% of them are in the West Bank and Gaza as we speak right now. So the reconstruction of Gaza and the construction or whatever of the West Bank already includes 40% of the refugees. 60% of the refugees are in Jordan, 40%, 10% in Syria, 10% in Lebanon. And the assumption is that most of them will want to stay. When Barak led the negotiations, Israel actually offered very significant incentives for Jordan to actually rehabilitate the refugees in Jordan. We're talking about then, I'm talking about 20 years ago, a $16 billion incentive for Jordan to rehabilitate the refugees in Jordan. And I think that this idea is still relevant. By the way, a lot of the ideas that were negotiated 25 years ago and 20 years ago on the permanent status will be coming back in new and kind of surprising ways in the coming few weeks. Because, as I said, there are a number of questions that are going to be answered as we transition from an outline to an agreement. For example, what are the borders of Gaza? Okay, will there be an area? Is any part of Gaza, of the Gaza territory, even open for Israeli settlement? If the answer is no, it actually means that the Gaza borders are based on the 1967 lines. Then again, the Trump outline speaks about having a security perimeter for Israel, an area that the international...
There are a lot of details to be worked out, and Gidi, I'm sure a lot of ideas will have to be brought out of the deep freeze as well as we kind of open a can of worms here. Gidi Grinstein,
that's an incredible moment right now.
Thank you very much indeed, Gidi. Great to have you with us, Gidi Grinstein.
Thank you for having me.